I just want to make sure, because I don't think we ever have to change the YouTube output. I want to make sure we're live on YouTube. Here we are. Yeah, we are live, baby.
Nice. Awesome.
So, hey guys, welcome to episode number 9, Sophisticated Savages. And we're ready to rock.
Let's just get right into it.
Yeah, I mean, I compiled a list of things.
Okay. Go for it.
You want to just go for it?
Go for it.
All right, first things first is we have Trump saying he's going to turn the Gulf. I want to make this a little louder too, and then turn down.
Assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate.
Does that sound good for you?
It's appropriate.
Okay, let's just start that
Assets.
over.
We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America.
Wait. Is
what
it
a
reacting to
beautiful
it? Is it just
and
playing?
It's appropriate.
Yeah,
It's
we're
appropriate.
reacting to it.
Assets. We're going to be
Is that it?
changing the name
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
that's
Gulf
just
of
like
him
Mexico.
saying that.
Does he have the authority to do that?
Not.
I mean, where does that come from? Where does how are oceans and seas officially named and accepted?
Go on over to.
I mean, he could change it all he wants. It's whether or not
boy,
the world will
Perplexity.
accept it.
Let's see. Who named
No, who has the authority to change the name of an ocean or sea?
the authority
Well, let's see.
to change the name of a sea or Gulf of Mexico? All right, let's see. Following international law and agreements, there are no single entity that is unilateral authority.
That's what I would have
for
thought.
named-
The Gulf of Mexico is an international waterway, so he could say we're changing it. But I mean, how is that going to be
but
imposed?
The United States funds the majority of those international anything, so it's as simple as like, oh yeah, you're not going to listen to what we say, then we're not going to donate your annual budget of $10 billion to you.
How did the Gulf of Mexico originally get its name? Who named it?
Who named the Gulf? Who named the Gulf of Mexico? Early period of European exploration.
Juan de la Cosa's map from 1500 contained the first known European reference to the Gulf. By 1502, maps began to show more geographic details of the area. The earliest maps referred to the Gulf as Seno Mexicano or Golfo de la Nueva España.
The Spanish Gulf.
1569 is when it first was named,
Yeah.
Gulf of Mexico.
So yeah, there we go. All right, next clip. We got
I mean, what do you think? What do you think about that?
the think about that.
Yeah, you like that? I really think it ain't. It's
honestly,
nothing.
it doesn't
Who cares
matter.
at
Yeah, I
all.
don't
Yeah,
care.
that's just that's a complete flex.
Gulf of America. I think people don't like change periods, so if you rename anything,
That's true.
it's like, people are going to complain about it. So
Yeah.
like, people complain about Twitter getting renamed to X to this day still. rename the Gulf of Mexico, everyone's gonna be like, yeah, in the Gulf of America. But then eventually, like in 200 years, people will actually, like, America will catch on, and then it'll be like, yeah, this was once called the Gulf of Mexico. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Like the Gulf of America, really?
It is just like X.
Yeah.
In the beginning, everybody still just called it Twitter, whereas now, a couple years on, it's like less cool to call it Twitter than just to say like, yeah, it's just X.
I personally don't care at all. There is another thing. Trump's actually making some bold things. Like he wants to rename Denali, the tallest mountain in North America, in Alaska. It used to be called Mount McKinley. It was originally called Denali by like the Native Americans that live there.
Mm-hmm.
But then like in like 17 or 1800s or something like that, they renamed it to Mount McKinley, and it was Mount McKinley all the way up until like I think Obama changed it back to
Denali.
Yeah.
Really?
And Trump said he's going to change it from Denali back to McKinley. So that's another thing. I mean, he's just looking. Trump's in there like looking to shake boats and cause waves in any capacity.
I think I like Denali better than Mount McKinley.
Yeah. Okay, I found this guy. He says, shout out to Jake Bro. He said, I boiled the Lex Friedman's 3-hour podcast with President Zelensky to less than 10 minutes for you.
Perfect.
I think that's a good one for us to watch. So let's see, we'll line it up perfectly.
The following is a conversation with Volodymyr Zelensky. It is sometimes said that Russian is banned in Ukraine.
This is not true. I'm speaking Russian now, right? This is why it's so painful to talk about the Russian language too, because look, if a person does not want to listen, they will not listen, no matter what language we speak.
I disagree with you here. I think and hope that many people in Russia will hear us today.
They blocked YouTube recently. Are you aware of this? In their country. Do you think he wants to end the war? That's what you suggested? I think this is naive. I'm sorry. With all due respect, it's naive to think he wants to finish the war.
What I would want, I do have what some might call a naive dream of you sitting down with Putin and Trump and negotiating a deal about a ceasefire and together finding a path to long-term peace. And I think this requires strength, requires negotiations. There are a lot of carrots and sticks here that can be used to make a real deal. And Trump is very keen on making a deal and ready to negotiate.
Can I ask you a question? Yep. President Trump will be in the same situation as I was in 2019. Precisely the same situation. I want to end the war. We want a lasting peace for Ukraine. We must do this. The ceasefire, exchange people, and then diplomatically return all territories. And we will
Pause.
do this through diplomacy.
I will say,
Haven't
I
they-
think we should limit pauses. Just saying,
For what?
like watch the whole clip, then react to it.
Well, they're going over so many points. I don't think that's wise.
Yeah.
I think you can definitely pause it. Haven't they suspended democratic elections in Ukraine?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Keep going.
What's really crazy too, I just want to point out as well, is I think they were speaking like Russian. German, and something else.
No,
in this
Russian,
interview.
Ukrainian, and English.
I think they said German too. I read it.
Did
They didn't
Okay.
say English. Yeah. But what the crazy thing is, I think they're using AI
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
to use their real voice and
wild.
transcode it. Yeah.
What will happen next with President Trump? If the ceasefire happens without security guarantees, at least for the territory we control, what does he get? If he manages to make a ceasefire deal, and 3 months later, Putin launches a new wave of attacks, what will Trump look like?
It's important to say that what you said about the children is a tragedy. War is hell. But let me say again, we must find a path to peace.
There is one.
What is it?
There is one. Before ceasefire, strong Ukraine. Strong Ukraine's position? Yes, it's true. If we do not have security guarantees, Putin will come again.
To make it clear, let's describe. The idea that you are speaking about, I would like to offer you other ideas too. Could we talk seriously about guaranteeing Russia's security?
Okay, can I interview you a little? Question is, what land is the war happening on? And where did it start? It's our first meeting. During the second one, you will be more on our side.
Yeah.
But it's just
You're very convincing.
we will see.
Very charismatic.
Yeah.
Again, I would like us to find a path to peace. So let us nevertheless try to start in the middle.
Your Russian isn't that good either.
Huh.
And I told you
Yes.
that this is only our first meeting.
My English is not very good either.
Your English is very good.
Thank you. To be honest, I'm terrible at speaking in every language. I have a dream that, let's say, on January 25, or sometime at the end of January this year, you will sit down with Donald Trump, with Vladimir Putin, and together negotiate a ceasefire.
Trump and I will come to an agreement. And then and I am sure that he can offer strong security guarantees together with Europe. And then we can talk to the Russians. That's right. Not just three of us sitting down at once. And you still talk to me like that? Do you know how? As if Putin wants to sit down and talk, but Ukraine does not. This is not true.
I think that, yes, he is in fact ready to talk.
Did you talk to him?
On the phone or what?
How do you normally talk to him?
I have a dream here that the three of you will get together in a room and make peace.
USA, Britain, Russia, France, China. Did anyone come, you ask? No. Did anyone reply to these letters, official letters? They are all recorded by diplomats. Did anyone conduct consultations? No. And why not? They didn't give a fuck. This is understandable in Russian, right? And if you say there is a risk that President Trump, will withdraw from NATO, for example, this is a decision of the United States. I'm simply saying that if it does, Putin will destroy Europe. Calculate
I don't
the
think
size
that's
of
true.
army in Europe. It's just that I say it for a reason. Do the calculation. Why did Hitler conquer all of Europe then? Almost. Just count, remember, his armies of millions. Calculate what Europe has. What are the largest armies? We have the largest army. The Ukrainian army is the largest in Europe. The second place after us is 4 times smaller than us. We want to stop the Russians, and they invite North Korean soldiers. Invited. Their faces are burned. They themselves burn their faces. Those who cannot escape, injured or killed. There's a video. Everything I'm telling you, there is evidence of this. More sanctions. It's okay. Not
okay.
to take off sanctions.
It's okay with you, but it's not going to be okay with the president of Russia.
Yes, but I'm not thinking how it will be very good for him. He's still a killer.
I understand, but unfortunately, the reality is that a compromise is needed in order to reach an agreement.
In your understanding, the fact that he is in jailed after all the murders, he is not in jailed assuming all the murders, and no one in the world is able to put him in his place, send him to prison. Do you think this is a small compromise?
This is not a small compromise, and to forgive him will not be a small compromise.
To forgive, no one will forgive. This is absolutely impossible to forgive him. I'm just curious. They took your child away. Are you going to ask who did this? And they will answer that dude did this. You will say, oh, well, then there are no questions. No, you will go fucking hell and bite their head off. And it will be fair.
If you believe this, it will be very difficult to negotiate. If you think that the president of a country is completely crazy, it is really hard to come to an agreement with him. You have to look at him as a serious person who loves his country and loves the people in his country. And he conducts, yes,
Who are you?
destructive military
Who
actions.
are you talking about now? who loves his country.
Putin. Do you think he doesn't love his country?
No. What is his country? He happened to consider Ukraine his country. What is his country? Explain it. Tomorrow he will say that it's America. No pity for the Chechens? Do they look like Russians? Do they speak Russian? Of course. Of course they learn in schools like anywhere there's been Russification. Who are the Chechens? A different people. Another faith, other people, another language, a million. Eliminated. And eliminated how? How did he kill them? With love? I know, fuck. By hugging. In Ukrainian, as we say, strangling by hugging. I love you so much. I love you so much that I want to kill you. That's his love. And that's not love. You're mistaken. He does not love his people. He loves his inner circle. It's only a small part of the people. He doesn't love them.
I once again have a dream that even if there's hate, that you sit down with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and you find a way to peace.
Russia will have to apologize. It will. This will happen because they are guilty. They are guilty. And as I told you, the guilty are different. Both those who participated and those who remain silent, because silence is also about participating.
You think you're going to win the debate? You versus Zaluzhny, Poroshenko, or Arestovich, and you decide to run. Do you think you're going to win the debate? Or you're again focused on the war? And everybody should be
I'm
focused.
really focusing on the war.
As I said, the dream I have is it's a historic opportunity to make peace, to make lasting peace. Soon. I hope you find the path to peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for talking.
Thank you for
today.
coming.
Okay. So,
All
initial
right.
thoughts.
I think Zelensky is very defensive. He seems more emotional and less logical. So
Okay.
yeah, he seems very emotion driven and less logic driven. He's doesn't seem like he's willing to negotiate peace at all. Or okay, it doesn't seem like he's willing to make any concessions.
Mm-hmm.
He's basically like, no, this is what has to be done, and we're not doing anything unless this is done.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of his comparisons of Putin to Hitler and saying that Putin will march to take over Europe?
I don't think Putin compared to Hitler is an accurate comparison.
Why so?
Because Putin has invaded another country, which all countries in history have done before. It's more of like a strategic thing. I wouldn't say he's like throwing people within Russia. I mean, maybe he's killing off some people that he deems as
Political enemies.
enemies, but he's not
Sure.
just like mass rounding people and ethically cleansing them.
Would you consider modern Russia a totalitarian state?
Yes and no.
Okay. You want to elaborate?
Yes, in the sense that, well, I'll be honest. First, I'm going to disclaim my ignorance. I don't really know the exact electoral process of Russia right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little confusing. I don't even really understand Britain's or France's or Canada's, how they, I have enough time trying to put a thumb on America's political process to understand all these other countries that have different rules and such like that.
Yeah, but do you think that if opposing voices arose in Russia, would they be immediately suppressed?
Yeah. I think that for a time period, opposing voices that were risen in America were immediately suppressed too.
Not in the same capacity, though. You could say social media censorship, but I don't think that people were being rounded up.
When Japan invaded Pearl Harbor, we did round up Japanese people because we thought that there could be internal Japanese spies and that any Japanese person was suspect.
Mm-hmm.
So it's from a logical point of view, I actually understand it as a military tactic.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, was it, everybody says that was wrong to round up Japanese people. The United States did in the 1900s. And, is it is it wrong to do? Yeah, I think maybe it's wrong to do in any country, but when it comes to war, things are unright as a basis.
How would you define then a totalitarian state?
A state.
If you look at Nazi Germany in the Second World War and you look at Stalinist Russia, how could you contrast modern day Russia from either of those systems?
I think Russia does have some form of an election. Putin gets elected uniformly every time. Is that because the country actually genuinely loves him?
I think his political opponents were imprisoned or killed in this last election.
I couldn't say yes or no for that. I don't know. I mean, it's the reason why I'm struggling so much with the question is, there's things where like the CIA has spies on American citizens. So it's like, I'm unsure if America is even
scot-free.
Yeah. So it's like
the difference though in America is that the electoral system still works.
So it would seem.
Well, Donald Trump was elected. You would say that the deep state was in mass opposition to Trump.
I don't agree with everything that Trump says and does.
I don't either, but still, it still is a two-party system.
Is a two-party system a mechanism for not allowing your voice to be heard? Some people say that that we shouldn't just have.
I completely agree. We shouldn't have a two-party system.
Two-party system, yeah.
I think that system is broken 100%.
See, there's so many gaps of knowledge in my mind that I couldn't absolutely say for
Make
sure.
Make an informed comment
and be like, yeah. Russia, dictatorship. America, not dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think America has certainly had dictatorship properties.
Yeah.
I think we've gotten away from the 1700s.
Let me say this. I think that because we're going to go into the civil war in Sudan, which today was declared, there's a genocide. It's ongoing. It's not like it happened overnight, but an ongoing genocide in Sudan.
Yeah.
Since the civil war broke out. And the first thing, when you start looking into it, it's the same thing with the fall of the Assad regime. It's the same thing with Afghanistan, all these different countries that are in a more centralized geopolitical part of the world. I don't think there's ever been, backpedal that. How about in modern times? it's indescribably rare to find a declaration of war from, let's call it a main stage country, world player, where a country will declare war on another country and invade their land solely for the reason of invading land and expanding their empire. The era of colonialism is essentially dead. It doesn't really exist. It's not like a land grab, an expansion of territory. There's so many players involved in every one of these conflicts where the mainstream narrative will be Russia bad, Ukraine good, because Russia invade Ukraine, therefore Ukraine good, Russia bad, Putin evil. Very dumbed down, very oversimplified, but that's the narrative that's portrayed, where in reality, there's so many forces at play in all of these conflicts to perpetuate them, the behind-the-scenes lead up to Putin's invasion of Ukraine. With the Assad regime, Assad was backed by Russia, China, I think a couple of, maybe Turkey as well, and the rebels were backed by the United States, several other Western countries, where it's not like, oh, the Assad regime just fell because of this, or the reason why the Assad regime is evil is solely because they're declaring or they're using chemical weapons on their citizens. There's so many players, shadow players behind the scenes that are involved in all of these things. And it's the exact same thing. Well, not the exact same, but it's very similar to Hitler's declaration of war on Poland, and that it wasn't just a land grab, essentially. That the reason why Nazi Germany arose is because of the harsh sanctions of the Treaty of Paris that would have taken Germany 500 years to recover economically. So you see what I'm saying? It's never as simple as good versus evil. And that's the thing that Zelensky, he seems like a Winston Churchill character, and that he would, and I mean, you understand his position, because from him, his country's being invaded, and the only way to stop it is to perpetuate funds and support from more powerful countries throughout the West. It's the exact same thing with Churchill and the United States in World War II, and that you could make a very compelling argument that it did not serve the United States in any way to support and enter into World War II, especially when the war was essentially over by the time we even landed on D-Day, because Stalingrad had already happened. That's where the Hitler's forces were already depleted. But he has a vested interest in painting Putin as the bad guy. He seems like it almost seems like the mainstream narrative is a talking piece for Zelensky's position, rather than the actual nuance behind everything, which I think Lex Friedman was trying to get a little bit more into. And that what you have to understand is that I think anybody can agree that a declaration of war on a sovereign nation resulting in hundreds of thousands of soldiers' deaths, civilian casualties, is an act of evil, and that war is hell. But that it's not as simple as that Putin is just an evil man who doesn't care at all for his people, and that nothing led him to this. It was purely an act of malice and greed.
Well, yeah, I don't think Russia invaded Ukraine just to conquer more land.
He didn't.
It was a security thing for Russia. And then
the fall of the Soviet Union was negotiated. One of the core doctrines, I want to say NATO, not the United Nations. I want to say NATO was created to check the Soviet Union. As a direct check against it, an alliance of Western nations to check the rapid expansion of communism. One of the core agreements to disbanding the Soviet Union was that NATO would never encroach within a certain geographic region close to Russia's border. And that's one of the big things of having Ukraine join NATO. The West has already done that. They've already broken the agreement. And so Putin's logic would be, well, you've already broken a part of this alliance that we had, this agreement that we've had for 30 years. why should I honor this anymore as well when you're clearly encroaching on my doorstep. You're planning NATO even closer than what it was agreed upon for the whole Soviet Union falling anyway. So it's like, well, you broke the agreement in the beginning. What do I have to honor this for? All's fair.
Well, yeah, and let's be honest: is Russia has nukes, Ukraine doesn't. If Ukraine had nukes, I actually think Zelensky would give the go ahead to fire a nuke at Russia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what would that cause?
Oh, wait. My wife's calling me. Hold on. Let me take 5.
Take 5.
Hello. Hey.
Take 5 from me.
May need to end the stream impromptu because Fitz texted me asking if we're available. And so if so, we'll just pick it back up.
Honestly, you want to just keep it rolling and go in another room?
I mean, why not just end it?
Because I'd have to redo all
I guess
the
so.
streaming.
That's fine.
Guys, we're going to be stepping away on an important business call for maybe like 30 minutes. See y'all in a little bit. Lost that money. I don't think you can call her in the stream.
It's hot in here. You felt that heat wave?
Yeah.
I'm gonna just leave this door open.
Yeah, leave that door open, Gary. Some hot lights. Oh, fuck. All right, guys, we're back for the time being to react to some other stuff. We might have to get a call and bounce again, but we'll see. So yeah, let's go. Next one, we have the NVIDIA. I mean, this is another maybe hot clip of that. I don't know if you want to do that, but
Look at what that says. The channel is Autism Capital. This is an incredible
I
reaction.
understand, but
Lex Friedman.
unfortunately,
Wait,
the
pause it.
real-
Just read the description. Lex Friedman tries to tell Zelensky, "Can you just forgive Russia?" That's a paraphrase for sure. And Zelensky immediately puts him in his place
yeah,
for
maybe
his
it's biased.
naivety.
Okay, we have Mark Zuckerberg talking about the censorship. We can do that in a second. I just want to do probably the vice president certifying the election.
The state of the vote for the President of the United States as
So
delivered
boring.
to the President of the Senate is as follows. The whole number of the electors appointed to vote for President of the United States is 538.
So much
Within
pomp.
that whole number, the majority is 270. The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris.
Did she bang the gavel?
Kamala D.
Probably,
Harris
yeah.
of the state of California has received 226 votes.
So stupid.
It really is
Like
so
from
freaking
both
stupid.
sides.
The whole number of electors appointed to vote for Vice President of the United States is 538. Within that whole number, a majority is 270. The votes for Vice President of the United States are as follows. J.D. Vance of the state of Ohio has received 312 votes.
It feels shameful to watch this. It's
Tim
such a
Walz of the
circus.
state of Minnesota has received 226 votes.
Does somebody train them to stand up?
This announcement of the state of the vote by the President of the Senate shall be deemed a sufficient declaration of the persons elected, President and Vice President of the United States, each for a term beginning on the 20th day of January 2025, and shall be entered together with the list of the votes on the journals of the House and the Senate. Thank you very much.
So yeah.
So much pomp, so much spectacle involved. Are these not all the members of Congress who are there? Is that not who it is in the
Yeah, I
crowd?
think. Yeah, honestly, it's foolish on both sides, in my opinion.
It's so foolish.
It's like I would be like the most stoic, just sitting there, like no matter who won.
It's a bunch
either
of
side.
monkeys. It's a bunch of elected leaders acting like followers.
Ding, ding, ding. And then, yeah, Zelensky. Already got Zelensky. No more of that. We can do the Zuckerberg.
Zuck.
Zuck. Honestly, yeah, Zuck, and then that might be it.
I have a list too of stuff.
Oh, yeah, we can go through your list. You want to do Zuck, though?
Sure.
About the importance of Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important.
I'm an alien lizard.
Because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram.
So
I started building
unnatural of a
social media
person.
to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression.
Right
And I still
before
believe
he
this today.
suppressed free expression.
But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US.
Absolutely.
After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed. So we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive. Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years.
Fascism,
when
anyone?
even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
Yeah, I mean, so he basically admitted all the things they did, and it almost looks like he's trying to save tail. So it almost looks like he's trying to he's damage control, because I think
It could be that.
incoming administration is going to be like, oh yeah, you ready to go? You ready to play ball? Basically.
Well, sure. Do you think that Mark Zuckerberg actually believes in these philosophies, or do you think that he's riding the wave just like he did back in 2020?
I mean, is he a lizard or is he not a lizard?
That's open for debate.
If he's a lizard, he's just doing whatever, is the current thing to do.
I'll say my opinion on this. Oh,
gotta
no, I
go.
won't.
All right, guys, we're back.
Boy, there's nothing like negotiating fucking multi-million-dollar deals. Fuck.
Yep. Okay, you got something? You want to send it to me or?
It's all go to the Sophisticated Savages YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And would you look at this? I think I just saw that on your page.
My page.
Well, on your YouTube page that you pulled up. Yep. See, look at that. One of the guys that we're going to be reacting to, Wesley Huff, just dropped on the Joe Rogan channel. Interview with Joe Rogan.
Wow. Playlist.
Yep. Go to Seafull. Viewful. No. Go back.
A brutal war is being waged in
Oh my gosh.
Viewful. Bottom. Yep. Okay. So, any of these are good.
I don't know if we can do them all, though. Let's just focus on...
Yeah, that's fine. We'll do Sudan and we'll do Wesley Huff.
Right here?
Do that one or scroll back up. Let me see. This one might be better.
is being waged in Sudan, so destructive that some fear it will cause the worst famine this century, yet most outsiders have barely noticed. This is the story behind the world's worst war.
So for those of you who are not aware, the United States Department of Defense just declared today that there is a confirmed genocide in Sudan. This video was posted 3 months ago before this declaration.
It wasn't long ago that Sudan was on the edge of a long-awaited peace. Mass protests in 2019 called for the ousting of Omar al-Bashir, a tyrant who had controlled Sudan for 3 decades. But ultimately, it was the army rather than the people who seized power. In 2021, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the head of the Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF, took control of the country. He governed alongside Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, known as Hemeti, the head of a paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. Today's war began as a fight for power between these two groups. Hemeti is a warlord from the western region of Darfur. He has a thirst for power, influential foreign allies, and has long led a murderous militia. In the early 2000s, Hemeti was head of a nomadic Arab militia called the Janjaweed. His horse-riding fighters helped the ruthless dictator Omar al-Bashir's regime slaughter black Africans in a conflict in Darfur. Most of Sudan is Arab, but several non-Arab tribes live in Darfur and elsewhere. These include the Zagawa, Fur, and Matalit people. These groups suffered awful persecution under Bashir. The army and the Janjaweed militia were accused of carrying out genocide against them. Perhaps 300,000 people were killed in that conflict, and 2.7 million were driven from their homes. Meanwhile, Bashir underplayed the conflict to the world.
Is the situation in Darfur continuing to deteriorate?
No, it is not true. The situation is improving.
But the International Criminal Court took action. In 2010, Bashir became the first person they charged with genocide. But despite being wanted for war crimes, Bashir continued to rule Sudan. Under him, the Janjaweed became a formal paramilitary force with tens of thousands of well-equipped troops, and adopted a new name, the RSF. The group's warlord leader Hemeti used his power to make money, controlling gold mines in Sudan and hiring out his men as mercenaries abroad. The RSF worked closely with Russian mercenary groups in the war in Libya and struck lucrative deals with the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, sending fighters to aid their war in Yemen. In April 2023, rivalry between Hemeti's RSF and General Arbahan's SAF exploded into open conflict. On April 15th, in the capital Khartoum, RSF forces raided the international airport and the presidential palace, which was later destroyed. The capital has been flattened. After brutal ground battles, much of the city is now under the RSF's control. And with the help of foreign backers like the UAE, which is credibly accused of supplying weapons to the RSF, the group has now seized control of large parts of the country. In Darfur, it seems the pattern of ethnic cleansing, even genocide, that Bashir started has continued. Last year, the RSF besieged the city of El Janina, committing atrocities against the Masalit tribe. The UN estimates that 10 to 15,000 people were killed last year in 2 massacres. Many found safety in the regional capital of El Fasher, until the RSF besieged that city too. Atrocities followed. The ICC is investigating allegations of widespread international crimes and is particularly concerned about the ethnically motivated nature of these attacks. In Part 2, we will use forensic analysis and open source intelligence to investigate the RSF's actions in Al Fasher.
I gotta say something before I
Heavy
get out of
stuff.
here.
Yeah, Garrett, I don't know what that was all about.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, besides genocide, African country, that's as far as my mind comprehended everything that.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know anything about that.
You don't need to. I think that video explained it very well.
Well, yeah.
Essentially, there was a oppressive regime that was in power, a dictator for 3 decades, that was ousted, and then, just like it happens in so many of these war-torn countries, the 2 paramilitary groups divided and are trying to seize power in different parts of the country. But that's where the genocide is especially centered around Darfur, like they were saying, and that the reason why they're calling it a genocide, and it's not just, I guess if the term applies, regular war crimes, is because the massacres appear to be ethnically motivated. They were saying most of the country is Arab, but the other portion that the genocide is directed towards are, I guess, what you would consider African, black Africans, that are being driven out from their homes. I think the video even said it, 2.7 million were driven away, and that, I don't know what, let's see if we can look up the actual numbers of the killed. I had this pulled up earlier.
What does that mean to us in America?
What it means to us is, I mean, there's just a genocide on Earth.
So should we go and invade them? So that's the complex. Should we send them some democracy?
It's a really complex issue because the United States has such a poor history of that. But at the same time, what do you do?
They got gold and oil. Let's go give them some democracy.
But on a very serious note, though, like, what do you do when you see something like that occurring? When you see an ethnic cleansing of people, is the right answer simply to sit by and watch as innocent people are slaughtered based on their ethnicity? It can't be solved by themselves.
Stepping in.
It can't be solved by themselves.
Well, eventually one side will win by force and take over, and then there will be no more.
So you would say the answer is to sit back and do nothing?
Unless you want to give them some democracy. I mean,
I don't know what the answer
See,
is.
that's the root of the entire conversation. Is
It
are
would be
we
the
the
same
world
thing.
police? Should we be the world police?
Well, it's one thing to deploy United States troops into a region like that. It's another thing to try and, I guess, prop up some of the opposing forces, but that doesn't work very well either. It's a very complex issue, but that's the whole thing. Is the answer to do nothing? Would you say it's to do nothing?
I think that's a very possible answer.
To do nothing.
I'm not the one making the decision, so
Yeah, but let's say it's for the sake of argument. It's not saying you are the person, obviously, or not.
Yeah, I
But
mean-
what do you actually think?
I think
Without just being a bleeding heart, but like, is there something that can actually be done? Do people? I guess that's the real question. Do you believe that people in power have an obligation as a citizen of Earth, as a responsibility to humanity, to stop something like that from occurring? If ethnic Jews are being rounded up and put into concentration camps to the tune of 4 to 6 million over a 5-year period, does anybody have a responsibility to go in and stop that? Or no? Is there a point at which something must be done? Or is it tyrants across the world may have free reign so long as it does not directly interfere with the United States?
Well, okay,
I don't think that's the right answer.
I think maybe that if America had all of its problems solved, that we could look into doing something like that. But there's the more attention we give outside of America, the less attention we have solving our own problems that we have.
America will never be perfect, though.
Very complex.
It'll never be in a perfect state.
Think of ancient history.
Mm-hmm.
You had tribes. Like I'm going through the history of Rome right now again, just because it's something for me to do at night when I'm all alone. And you have tribes who would just go into another tribe, or a country or a city that would go into another city, completely kill everybody. Maybe they would take the wives, definitely kill some of the children. Yeah, it seems to be they would spare the wives because then they just make them their own wives, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, would that technically be considered a genocide? So like
No.
Rome.
No. Genocide. A genocide is an ethnically spearheaded slaughtering.
Ethnically, but
Yeah.
they're their own people.
No. It's different ethnicities. Remember, the genocide's directed towards the non-Arab portion of the country in the Darfur region.
The non-Arab portion.
The
of
reason
country.
why the Holocaust is considered a genocide, or the Rwandan genocide, and Stalinist Russia, even though they killed more people, is not considered a genocide, is because Stalinist Russia was a mass, widespread killing of quote-unquote political enemies, even though it was just regular citizens. A genocide has to be targeted towards a specific ethnicity.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they. I mean, maybe it's more important for, I would say, the powers in that region to deal with the problem in their region.
Who would that be?
Like maybe
Who has the
like
ability to do
Saudi
anything?
Arabia or something, or bet they have some jets. Like, you know.
I don't think those people give a fuck.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's how do you know that if you step in and do anything as the United States, that you don't end up creating
a larger
worse
conflict
problem than the one you started with. So it's, I mean, maybe
how about this?
Start off by demanding some answers, being like, "Hey, what's going on here?" But I mean, that would immediately be like assuming like, "Hey, we're thinking about coming in." I don't know.
Or it'd be
I'd
similar.
have to think about that. That's a very deep thought.
The United States policy in regards to a lot of this stuff is to prop up, fund, support surrounding and opposing groups, just in the exact same way that the Assad regime was funded by, or not funded, but supported militarily by China and Russia. The opposing regime was supported by the United States. But then you start to have, and this is where it's so fascinating how geopolitics actually work, is you start to have this shadow war being fought between opposing forces where we're increasing tension between forces like Russia and China by trying to, allegedly, if something like that would happen, by having a humanitarian policy of trying to stop genocide. It's so dirty. It's so ugly. It really is. You see the puppets behind the strings of all this kind of stuff, because that's the whole thing. It's like I can almost guarantee you that if the United States did anything, anything short.
How do you know that the United States is not already involved in some way?
It very well could be. I don't know.
See what I'm saying?
I'm not as up to date on all this
stuff. How do you know
stuff.
there's not undercover agencies cooping leadership roles and creating instability to then?
Well, another thing, the Islamic State is prevalent throughout all those regions. I'm sure there's terrorist organizations that are prolific throughout there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know.
It's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so if the United States starts sending funds to oppose the genocide, then the exact opposite. It'll have an equal and opposite reaction with Russia, China, whoever, Pakistan, sending forces to the RSF.
I think the $1 million question is, should the United States be the world police?
I think the answer to that is closer to no than yes, but it's not. Should the United States have 0% any kind of involvement if atrocities are committed across the world? Should they have zero? Should they just be a net zero policy? I think that's a very difficult thing to answer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm about done, Garrett.
No, you have to do one more. You have to do Wes Huff because that episode just released today.
Okay. Do you see it?
It's these two. For those of you who don't know, Wes Huff is a biblical scholar who had a viral debate between somebody who I would consider largely a shyster, Billy Carson, who's been on PBD. I think he was on Joe Rogan, who has this anti-Christian, pseudo-religious philosophy of uncovering. If you ever heard of the Gnostic Gospels, right?
Mm.
If you ever heard of some of these allegations of how Jesus went to India, and that was viewed as learned from the Buddhist monks of many of his philosophies, it's this pseudo-religious soup that all of these religions are interconnected and that they took from everything, like the Enuma Elish, the creation story, how that was tied into Genesis, all these kind of things. He basically props up ancient aliens, kind of many gods. There's no one God. Christianity is false. Jesus was never crucified. None of that's in the Bible. Where are the sources? I've been to Egypt, all this stuff. Wes Huff debated Billy Carson live on somebody's podcast and just absolutely trounced him to the point that Billy Carson, probably worth multiple millions of dollars, probably very successful, all good to him, whatever. But Billy Carson approached this guy's house who hosted the podcast at 2:37 in the morning in a full suit and rang his doorbell, scared the guy's kids, demanding or with a handwritten cease and desist letter, saying that you can't put this out here anymore because he got so absolutely trounced by Wes Huff, somebody who actually knew the source material, but it did so well that shortly after that, he was invited on the Joe Rogan podcast, and that episode just dropped today.
All right, well, let's watch it.
So this is just a couple of clips of his.
Right here?
Yep.
I got to say something before I get out of here.
That's Billy Carson.
The Bible is full of contradictions. The biggest problem that we have is we're dealing with a civilization on this planet that is psychologically impaired. Human beings are psychologically
What is
impaired.
with this
This
freaking
entire
clip?
planet.
You see this?
We're living on an insane asylum.
Yeah.
Earth is an
What is going
absolute
on?
insane asylum. Mental illness has spread throughout the planet Earth like a complete virus. But when you take a look at the biblical text and you start going through this information, and it's the way that it's laid out, it becomes a proponent of more divide and conquer tactics. It becomes a proponent of
What
racism.
is he even saying?
It becomes a proponent of slavery. It becomes a proponent of all these things that are dark and ill, including murder and killing in the name of God. When I'm going to drop the mic on that.
Yeah, go on. We can do a follow-up. I really appreciate it, Billy. Thanks so much for interacting.
Oh, they don't give his reaction?
I gotta
Oh,
say something
dude.
before I get out of here. The Bible is full of.
Dang it. Hold on. Dude, John, stop being such a big fat pussy.
What did you just say to me live on air?
You heard exactly what I just said.
All right, man.
Okay, I think this is what I was looking for. I'm going to send this to you. Dude. What is going on over there?
According to the Sinai Bible, Jesus wasn't crucified in that Bible.
Do you mind if I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
When you say the Sinai Bible, what are you referring to specifically? Refer to the Sinai Bible. Would you be referring to Codex Sinaiticus? Like the codex that comes... Okay, that's why I was trying to get some clarification. Because I actually have a facsimile. So I have a photocopy of Codex Sinaiticus that I work with in my office. So I have it here.
Oh,
dude.
Well, for some reason it's not. I don't know. It's not. It doesn't look right.
What is it doing?
It's cut off at his mouth.
A brutal war is being waged.
Is this it?
Yeah.
According to the Sinai Bible, Jesus wasn't crucified in that Bible.
Do you mind if I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
When you say the Sinai Bible, what are you referring to specifically? Refer to the Sinai Bible. Would you be referring to Codex Sinaiticus? Like the codex that comes... Okay, that's why I was trying to get some clarification. Because I actually have a facsimile. So I have a photocopy of Codex Sinaiticus that I work with in my office. So I have it here. And the only reason I asked for clarification is because Sinaiticus in particular is just a 4th century Greek manuscript. Its text of the Gospels reads almost identical to the modern Greek text that we develop translations from. When you say that it denies the crucifixion or that the crucifixion is there, I mean, I can go on right now, Codex Sinaiticus, and I can look up Matthew 27, where it has Jesus being crucified. And
where was that piece
I found
discovered?
the text where I was referencing, actually, I was misquoted. I misquoted there. It's the Gospel of Barnabas.
And then he goes on, Westhoff goes on to say that the Gospel of Barnabas is a known forgery, that the most recent evidence of its existence appeared in the 1600s. So essentially everything that this guy, Billy Carson, is citing from is nothing. He has no claims to anything.
Well, yeah. That's good that he got owned for speaking about things he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
So, all right, you about done?
Yeah, we can wrap.
Okay, cool. All right, later, guys.
Later.